think of an antagonist, you think about a scary evil villain who's always trying to mess up the protagonist's plans. The definition of it being a person who is actively opposing or is hostile to someone or something, an adversary. Now when you hear that, you probably don't think about Dimple. But Dimple didn't always start off as a kind, loving, and good friend we see today.
Take care, kid.
Dimple's first appearance was in Season 1, Episode 3, as the cult leader of LOL. He had tons of people controlled using their laughter and his powers. If I told you this and you never watched the show, you'd probably think, wow, this guy's a horrible person, but no, he's just an idiot. I love Dimple as much as the next guy, but come on, what did he expect? He was just gonna take over the world with this little ass cult? Dimple's people successfully find Mob and trick him into following their plan by promising him popularity.
I can't. I have to head home.
You'll be popular.
Okay, let's go then.
Which is super wholesome, by the way. Like, it's so cute because Mob could just become popular whenever he wants by abusing his Esper powers. But he doesn't. Dimple appears in front of Mob and these people. Dimple at this point just uses his powers to manipulate people. He successfully gets the other two under his control using the smile mask, but Dimple notices a problem. Mob isn't smiling. Mob isn't laughing. Dimple grows confused, wondering why his mask didn't work. I'm guessing at this point Dimple has never ran into someone who has like crazy Esper powers and shit. It's funny seeing him freak out. This face he makes always fucking kills me. Mob decides to leave because the cult isn't gonna make him popular. Speaking about cults, we have a new Discord now, so make sure to join. Link in description below. Dimple stops him and challenges him to a contest, but not just any contest. It's a contest of trying not to laugh. Usually Mob wouldn't even acknowledge this, but the contest involved milk. And if you know Mob, you know he loves milk.
It just so happens Mob loves milk.
This play that Dimple made really shows his intelligence. He could rival the top tier smartest guys in the verse by just this play alone. Okay, I'm playing. Or am I? I try to make it eerie, but I'm just gonna talk normally now. Mob does love milk. The coincidence is crazy, and Dimple's luck is even crazier. We've seen Dimple survive the most heinous things. It's like he can't die or something. Mob beats everybody he goes against until he goes against Dimple, and Dimple's cheating ass put something in his drink that made the milk like spludge out of his mouth and eyes, and it's just fucking gross. Everyone's laughing at him, and Dimple states that Mob laughed, which Mob angrily denies, and flexes a bit of his power, snapping everyone out of their trance.
That wasn't laughter.
What the? Where's my...
Dimple sees this and puts everyone back in their trance. Dimple is then confused, thinking to himself that Mob may have been the one who released them from their trance, but he just shrugs it off. He's like, no way, this kid, is that powerful. Dimple commands his cult to grab Mob. They start mocking Mob to the point where he has a flashback.
Come on, Mob!
Tsubomi.
Get a clue already.
We can see his emotions bubbling, and we see he's currently at 74% rage. Dimple then proceeds to use his quote-unquote divine power, but that just ends up failing. Mob is just staring, unable to laugh. Mob then realizes that Dimple also has psychic powers. At this point, he thinks Dimple is a human. He tells Dimple that his psychic powers aren't going to make him laugh. Mob isn't even trying to fight it. He just can't.
Even if I really wanted to.
Mob's a powerful Esper and all, but he struggles at something as easy as emotions, something everyone uses on the daily basis. In Mob's eye, you're probably stronger than he is. Let's get back to topic. You can feel that Mob feels bad for the guy who's literally trying to control him. Mob was one of the most kind and gentle people in the show. Dimple proceeds to mock Mob for not being able to laugh,
Come on already, get a clue.
mentioning that he won't be able to laugh or share any emotions with someone, which will force him to be alone forever. This pisses Mob off, and he straight up goes to 92% anger. Mob tells Dimple,
I'm glad that the one who said something as horrible as get a clue was an evil spirit.
Dimple makes his followers jump on top of Mob. The Mob's emotions finally burst, and he becomes 100% rage. Mob then just straight up trashes Dimple, straight up just murders him. Mob exorcises him and says some cool ass lines.
I didn't even notice the hex because it was so weak. I only allowed them to come out upon your request. This is what happens when I let them show.
Mob then returns to Regan's place like nothing happened. Here's another example of Regan being a great master.
Today you were able to save a group of people that only you could have saved, so you should be proud of yourself.
Mob wakes up from a good night's sleep and Dimple appears, shocking Mob and immediately shooting him up to 20%. He comes to Regan's place with a little flying booger. That booger turns out to be Dimple. Mob asks Regan what he should do with the spirit, which Regan responds with,
Must be too weak for me to see it.
What? Lucky you.
and this is the start of a great friendship. I wanted to go in on his intro just to show how far Dimple has really come. He's come from an evil guy who wanted to take over the world to a less evil guy who we all love who wants to take over the world. Dimple's funny in so many different ways. His humor and the way he just keeps things real with Mob is what makes him a fan favorite. Dimple's become a kind of second brain to Mob, a brain that thinks more rationally. But Mob mostly just ignores him. Dimple started his journey with Dimple trying to do his thing, manipulate Mob. When I think things started changing was in season 1, episode 4, when Dimple and Mob found a love letter in a locker that tells him to meet him at this spot. Mob gets excited thinking that he was finally getting popular, but then Dimple just shuts him down. Dimple then tries to tell Mob that the horrible handwriting shows someone was obviously setting him up. Dimple hits him with this unreal line.
You're so unpopular, you don't realize it.
It's not real then?
Just let it go, Shigeo.
Mob hears him out, then ignores his advice and shows up to the spot. And Lord behold, it was a trap, and poor little Mob gets kidnapped. Mob is so wholesome yet so dumb. The Body Improvement Club comes to save Mob, taking out all of his kidnappers. Then a young, blonde-headed, not strong-looking kid comes along and takes the Body Improvement Club out. It's hilarious because I think Teru is just super buff, when that's not the case. Teru beats them all and looks towards Mob, who is the last one standing, being confused because he didn't even notice Mob due to him not having a big presence. Teru attacks Mob to no avail. Our boy Dimple then comes in like a fucking god, not letting that happen, and he used the little power he had to reform his body and get one tap.
Hail's someone who can become a god. He's not some second-rate loser like you.
But he tried. Mob sees this and doesn't get upset at all. His anger goes up by 3% though. His total anger right now is 50%. This is one of my favorite moments in Mob Psycho. It really shows how much and how fast Dimple grew attached to Mob. Dimple does grow on Mob eventually. Mob lets Dimple control his body. Mob lets Dimple watch his friends, stuff like that, etc.
What a dumbass! Now it's mine! Just try and take it!
Let's jump to the end of season 2 when Dimple finally gets Mob's body. Dimple did contemplate stealing Mob's body, but he didn't. One of the main reasons was because the buff guy in the Ultimate 5 was gonna hurt Mob's crush, so he fought him and got rolled until Dimple unleashed his true form and took over the Body Improvement guy's, leader's body and smashed Shibita straight to the ground. Dimple started as an antagonist but quickly became a friend, and I don't mean to just Mob, I mean to the whole fan base, to all of us. Now let's talk about my favorite part of season 3. This is the episode that marks Dimple's demise. This episode is a dedicated Dimple episode. We see Dimple accomplishing his dreams. Even with Dimple still trying to accomplish his dream of being a god, he still tries to let Mob in on it. He wants Mob to work beside him, not just because Mob's powerful, but because it's his friend. Dimple tries to break the bonds between him and Mob, because he knows that's what he has to do to conquer the world. Dimple is not a bad guy. He just has huge dreams. Dimple and Mob get into a huge fight, where Mob doesn't really fight back because he doesn't want to hurt Dimple. He knows Dimple isn't really like this. This isn't the real Dimple. Dimple tries to hurt Mob, but to no avail because he just can't. Their bond is too tight. They are too fond of each other, you could say. Dimple does attack Mob, but not to kill. We see Dimple try to kill Mob here, but he couldn't do it.
He's right, Dimple. I can trust you.
Trust?
Mob does trick us all by faking that he's about to murder Dimple, but it was all just a ruse. Mob gains all his power and shoots it up in the air. He doesn't want to hurt Dimple. And Dimple doesn't want to hurt Mob either. Dimple and Mob have a nice talk.
So, share them with me. I want to hear all about them. As your friend.
And Dimple realizes this isn't actually what he wants. He was actually happier just being Mob's friend.
All I really wanted was a friend. Hey, Shigeo. You're truly one of a kind, you know?
Dimple then picks up the weakened Mob and they run off. Happily ever after. Until the broccoli fights back.
Hey.
Mob, unable to run. Mob, unable to do anything, just weakened in his weakened state. Dimple notices this and makes the courage decision to sacrifice himself. He puts a spell on Mob that makes him leave the broccoli.
My brainwashing would actually work.
And Dimple flies the broccoli to the air. And we never see him again, assuming that that is his demise. And that is the last we see of Dimple. Mob is sad.
Thank you for being my friend.
From the beginning when Dimple was a villain, to the end when Dimple was a hero, we have always loved Dimple. Rest in peace, old friend.
All I really wanted was a friend.